Ryan Neiman, Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority. 105.9 FM and AM 630.
8:07 on WMAL. Brian Neiman, Brian Wilson in the house this morning. Mary Catherine has the day off. Big winds coming later today.
Yeah, 50 to 60 mile-an-hour winds possible after 3 o'clock this afternoon in some parts of our listening area.
Those are like hurricane force winds that are coming.
In West Texas, this is just a good spring day.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Ambassador John Bolton joins us about a half hour from now. Talk to him at 8:36. ABC's Jake Tapper is on the phone now, senior White House correspondent. Good morning, Jake.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, we're doing okay. I know that the president was down in Florida yesterday, putting out his energy plan, talking about gas prices, and the White House obviously wants to get ahead of this, and the president said yesterday he's not to blame for the rising gas prices. What is his case as to why gas prices are high and why it's not the White House fault?
Well, I mean, there's the reality that gas prices are never the president's fault,
right,
but they always get blamed on the president, whether it's President Bush or President Obama. They have to do with the international market. His argument is the following, that consumer demand is actually going down. Now, that's because of the recession. Domestic production is going up. That's because of the Clinton and Bush administrations taking steps. And that the problem is basically the international marketplace. And right now, what's one of the things affecting gas prices is tensions with Iran. But those are the facts. The reality is that whoever is in charge gets blamed, and he's in charge, and this is a big, potent issue for Republicans.
But if you don't have policies, Jake, I hear what you're saying, but in the short term, a president can do very little to change the price of gasoline.
Right.
But if he came into office 3 years ago and began doing things, we would start to see the benefits of that right now. And then he makes the argument that, really the price of gas right now is up because of what's going on in the Mideast. But at the same time, he has postponed a pipeline that would have provided oil from a non-volatile part of the world.
That's true. Look, first of all, let me just say, I'm not defending his.
I know.
But how much, if he had okayed every single thing that oil and gas companies wanted him to do, whether it's the Keystone Pipeline or offshore drilling in Alaska or whatever, it's still unclear that would have affected the price of gasoline right now, because this is a world market, and we deal with international prices, and it deals with demand, consumer demand. And the fact is that the United States consumes, a disproportionate amount of the world's petroleum. Those are just facts. I agree with you that it's a potent issue, especially if you look at polls. There was a new Pew poll out yesterday indicating majority support for the Keystone Pipeline. I think it was like 60 or 62% support for the Keystone Pipeline. People think that there should be more development of domestic production here in the United States or surrounding the United States. And I agree it's an issue where he's vulnerable. But I'm just saying, as a factual matter, yeah, I don't know that would, if he had done if John McCain had been elected in 2008, the prices would be any different today.
But did you hear anything in the speech yesterday that made you think that he's changing his energy policy, or is it the same as it's been since he took office?
Same as he's been since he took office. And I didn't hear anything new policy-wise. I just heard him trying to get ahead of what is a political perilous place for him right now, which is the fact that prices are going up, and that could hurt the economic recovery, and it could certainly hurt his poll numbers, feeding into. It doesn't help consumer confidence when when whatever economic recovery you're seeing in your paycheck is now going to the Exxon station down the street. Not to pick on Exxon, but that's. I mean, he's obviously very worried. The entire event was, as has been described, it's not my fault. Mm-hmm. And whether or not he's right on the merits, he's going to be blamed for it because the buck stops there.
All right, so let me talk about the presidential race as it stands now. A lot of focus on the Republican side, a lot of talk on the Republican side of the equation about social issues of late. I would imagine that the White House is very happy for that to be the case.
I think that they're happy anytime that the framing is around, contraception or whether abortion should be legal or those things. When the debate turns into a different area, for instance, the contraception debate, quote unquote, can be framed in any number of ways. It can be framed in terms of religious liberty. Is the government imposing its view on religious organizations. When you frame it that way, it's not as helpful to the White House because there are a lot of people who have concerns about the government telling religious organizations what they need to do. So it really just depends on how they're framed.
But wouldn't they rather have that conversation than have a conversation about the economy?
No, that's right. They would. They would, although they are able to have the conversation that the economy is getting better. But it's still not good enough. There's still so many millions of Americans hurting. And even though the president's poll numbers are better, remember that he's still under 50% when it comes to his approval rating on how he's handling the economy. People still do not approve of him in that area, and that's a real problem for him. So I don't know that he would rather talk about contraception than the economy. I think both of them are problem areas for him, potentially, depending on the framing. The way that it's being framed right now, absolutely he'd rather talk about contraception.
All right, we're going to have John Bolton on in half an hour now. He's a big critic of the administration and doesn't like what happened with this letter that was written to the Afghanistan president. What exactly was the reasoning behind the letter, and does the Obama administration, the White House, believe that it was an apology of sorts?
I'm not sure that they've used the word apology. That there's been an expression of regret for the burning of the Korans. Now, remember, the letter was sent, and the letter was sent before those American service members were killed. So there is a key timing issue here that I think not all of the coverage and not all of the candidates are respecting. It's not unprecedented for a president to do this. I believe, I'm going to need to do a little bit more research on this, but I believe President Bush, do you remember this? There was a sniper that shot a Koran in Afghanistan, and President Bush offered a private apology.
Doesn't ring a bell, but it wouldn't.
I mean, it's possible that it definitely happened, but yeah, it doesn't ring a bell with me either.
I mean, I think in these instances, there's a question of lives are being lost, and anything that can be done to dampen the what's going on in the streets and the protests. And the fact is that America's enemies are seize on incidents like that to incite anti-American sentiment, whether or not it was intentional.
Okay.
Obviously, I don't have a position on whether or not it's appropriate to apologize, but I think that was the thinking. You do what you can do to stop any potential loss of life.
Okay. What ABC's this week coming up on? Who's going to be on the show this week?
The great George will be anchoring. Obviously, all eyes on the Wolverine State, Michigan. Mm-hmm. We'll have a big debate between two prominent surrogates, one for President Obama, the Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick, and the other, the current governor of Michigan, Rick Snyder, who's endorsed Mitt Romney. And then on the round table, you'll have two former Michigan governors, Jennifer Granholm and John Engler, along with George Will and Cokie Roberts. So a lot of focus on the big event of the next week, the Michigan primary, and should be a great show.
Pleasure to have you on, Jake, as always. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot.